Hi, I'm Emily,
And I'm Julia.
and this is the Bad Bitch Podcast.
Welcome back, my lovelies. We've got, as always, a bit about what's been going on in our week, a little bit of pop culture, and then our topic today is self-sabotage, something that we all struggle with from time to time. So we're going to get into it. What is it? And more importantly, how we're going to move forward from it.
I love this topic. I actually feel like we could probably do 3 or 4 episodes on it, but we're going
true.
to start on it today and see where we get to.
Exactly. We might end up with part 1, part 2, part 3,
Well, let's
part
see.
500, but let's see what we can cover off.
How's your week been?
It's been really good. I've been out and seeing a lot of different lovely people. Very fortunate to attend the Stronger Together Angel Conference because I am an ambassador for an amazing charity run by Adele Martin and Fiona Schultz, and it's called Stronger Together Through Cancer, and they support women mainly, although not just women, who are solo entrepreneurs, business owners who are struggling with a cancer diagnosis. And the reason, both of them have been on their own cancer journeys, and that's what led them to set up this charity, because they found that there wasn't any support available for business owners and self-employed people. And so it's really important that they started to correct that. And so I went to the conference, which was beautiful, like at Chilston Park. It was an amazing experience to be with so many amazing women aligned to the same cause. And it was just really, powerful to bring us together to hear about the mission and where the charity's moving forward and to just be part of it. So yes, I had definitely a brilliant week with my cup was full.
That sounds amazing. Before we move on,
Yes.
I've got to talk about this week's sponsor.
Yes, you do.
Before I forget, this week we're sponsored by Rugged. Now, Rugged make amazing science-backed nutritional supplements, and they are the brainchild of James Gale, who's a nutritionist with 15 years experience. He also works as a PT, so he really understands how the body works. And one of the big challenges with supplements is there are so many out there. Mm-hmm. And I know as a nutritional therapist, I mean, there are thousands I can pick to help my clients with. I take about 25 different ones, and it's overwhelming. And so what James has done is he's handpicked a selection of highly impactful supplements and nutrients, science-backed, and fantastic formulations. I love the creatine gummies. Mm-hmm. So he's really streamlined it and made it really accessible, and you can find the supplements on therugged.co.uk.
Yes, and they have also just launched an amazing box which has all of your science-backed supplements in one place called the Basecamp box. So with that you get your creatine, your collagen, your electrolytes, and they're doing an offer at the moment where you get 6 months worth of magnesium free. And we all know how wonderful magnesium, all of those supplements are amazing. And you also get a free bottle and a habit tracker in there as well, which is really good.
We love that. And we're both massive fans of supplements, and they can make a huge difference to your energy, but also your mental focus. You know, I know a lot of women who are going through perimenopause or menopause will find these kinds of supplements really helpful. So huge fans, and you can find out more at therugged.co.uk.
And we will link in the show notes. To circumnavigate back to your week.
Well, I had a bit of a quieter week, which I needed because I'd had a busy week in London again. And I decided to do a bit more of the decorating and work on the house. And so I like to listen to things in the background. But sometimes I listen, you know, if you listen to an audiobook, it takes too much focus. Mm-hmm. And so I thought I'll just let my phone kind of autoplay some podcasts in the background. And on came an episode of the Oprah podcast where she interviewed this woman called Belle Burden. Have you heard of her?
I feel like the name is familiar.
So she's written this book called Strangers. Mm-hmm. And I haven't read the book, but I listened to this episode and I really wanted to share about Belle because I think she's definitely an honorary bad bitch. Okay. Now, Belle she's American. She came from a wealthy family. She was a writer originally. She met her husband. She married him quite quickly. She had 3 children. She backed away from her career. He had this big career in finance. And she thought she had the perfect marriage and she was very, very happy. Mm-hmm. And 20 years into this happy marriage, COVID hits, which we know was a bit of pressure on relationships. COVID hits, and one week in, someone texts her to tell her that her husband is having an affair with their wife.
Wow.
And then, I did tell you in advance, I said, I'm going to tell you something, you're going to have a reaction to it. It gets better, worse. So she then finds this all out, and her husband's reaction, because it's very hard to put yourself in those shoes.
Is
but
this going to make me want to murder people?
Maybe.
Yes.
I mean, that's sometimes your reflex.
Is please don't say that I murder people.
I think no. But
I know you mean yes.
No, but what I would say is you are such a good friend, and to all women, that if you hear of something bad happening to another woman, you do get a bit vengeful, and I really love that about you. And I think it's because you're really you have that instinct to protect other women. So this woman, she finds this out, and you think your husband's going to be apologetic, contritious, try and hide it or something. He says, yes, seeing someone else, actually, I haven't been happy with you for 20 years and I'm out of here. And he leaves, walks away from the whole marriage, never to come back, never to apologise, nothing. Yes, stunned silence. If you're watching, Julia is now stunned into silence. So what's amazing...
Which really happens, but continue.
Right, what's amazing about this story is that, first of all, that is extreme and incredibly shocking. But we all know women where a relationship has unravelled suddenly, or they found out that their partner's been lying to them. And there is this shock where you suddenly have to revisit your entire history. That's 20 years that she thought was going one way. And from what she says in this interview, I haven't read the book, you start to get the picture that this guy was after her money because she came from family money, her status, that he kind of liked the status he married into, and that he might have been a bit of a sociopath. But what happens is he then leaves, sets up with the new woman, and he then acts like everything is okay.
Right.
And they then go through, obviously, the divorce process, and she doesn't get into the detail in this interview, but what's really interesting is, obviously, it's extremely upsetting what happens to her, but also she talks about the shame. And this is really common, that if women are cheated on or conned or just left, they often go into the shame of, what could I have done differently, or why didn't I spot the signs, or whatever. They blame themselves, and then they feel really ashamed. And she did feel all those things. And then she recognised, wait, I'm not the one who should feel ashamed here, because it's not that at some point her husband said, I'm not happy, let's talk about it, let's go to counselling. He continued a myth, or he put on a show and didn't give her a chance in any way.
No.
And so what she does is, even though she feels incredibly ashamed, and by the way, her husband then says, I think it would be best for everyone if we told everyone that this was an amicable split.
I'm sure you did think that, mate.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Instead of going along with this, and by the way, this woman, one of the reasons I think she's a bad bitch is she is an introvert. She's a very soft, quietly spoken woman who you could see him thinking he could manipulate her into kind of going away quietly. And instead, she recognises she feels shame, but she refuses to hide away. And so she goes out in their society, and the kind of people they hang out with, everyone's married. So it's not like, when I got divorced, most of my friends just didn't care. A lot of them weren't married anyway. They didn't value me based on that. But she's in a society where you're valued based on this happy marriage. So she went out and she told everyone, and she said, you know what? My husband's left me for somebody else. I'm absolutely devastated. This is awful. I feel dreadful. Instead of hiding away or trying to make him not look that bad, she didn't make him look any worse than he'd made him look. But she went out and said it. So one of the things that really moved me about this interview was that she recognised that she was letting the shame limit herself. And I think it's really courageous, pushed herself beyond that, said, no, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to talk about it. And she's ended up writing a book. It started as an essay in the New York Times. It's become a book. And she's like, yes, this isn't what I wanted, but I'm not going to pretend it hasn't happened or try and minimise it. I'm going to just own it, which I thought was very courageous and powerful. But the other thing she said that really, when you just listen to something and you think, gosh, that's such a good point, is at first she went looking for answers. And again, if you've ever been in a relationship where someone's lied to you or tricked you, you become like Miss Marple.
Yes.
I can say this is from experience. And you want to try and solve it all and unravel it all and find out the truth. But because he steps away and he doesn't give her any resolution, and there's no apology and there's no sitting down and filling in the gaps for her, she has to come to terms with the fact this will never be resolved. And she comes to this great realization that to move on in her life, she doesn't need all the answers from him. She doesn't need to understand what happened. She doesn't need to get into all the gory details. And when she accepts that this relationship is never going to be resolved, she still has a relationship with him, co-parenting, but that he doesn't, by the way, he refuses to have his children live with him. He refuses any custody. Yes, I know your facial expressions say it all. So he basically steps out of his life, which is really interesting that he feels like as a man he just has that option.
After 20 years, you can just
he just steps out. And what's fascinating is she realizes she's got to stop trying to get any answers, any coming. There's going to be no like tidy bow. I think sometimes as women we want it all tidied up.
Have an end.
There's no tidy ending. And she moves forward, accepting that. And then she moves forward, and really, what's incredible, she finds joy in her life. She rediscovers her career. All these amazing things happen that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And I just thought that's such a good lesson. I don't think it's just for women. I think for men, for everyone. Sometimes when something doesn't work out, it can be a relationship. It can be a job. I've had people where work relationships have really blown up or business partnerships have fallen apart, and people revisit and relitigate that in their head for years. And she saw women who were still years later trying to unpick their divorce.
What was it?
Actually, I think sometimes it's really healthy to just draw a line in the sand and say, I've got all the information I'm ever going to get about that. I'm never going to fully understand it. And now I move on.
Yes.
Incredible.
That is really amazing, because there are going to be things in our life that we aren't going to be able to resolve, and we can take up so much of our brain capacity and our wonderful life, basically, trying to think and unpick every tiny detail, especially 20 years.
20 years of marriage.
Trying to unpick, because our brains will want to go, right, that pinpoint, that moment there, that was that first identifying bit, or that was the main point that started to go wrong, because now we know these two things, we can now avoid it in the future and we can keep ourselves safe. But you're just not going to know. And so just liberating yourself from that and not allowing that person to have that power over you moving forward is incredible.
Incredible. So that's her book, Strangers by Belle Burden. So I hope some people read it and find it inspiring. Now, that's actually a bit of culture from me.
I don't really feel like the Schiaparelli exhibition at the V&A is going to compete with that.
No, go on. Tell me though. Tell me.
Oh no, it's just so obviously the V&A have wonderful exhibitions. Just very quickly in a nutshell, they obviously did Chanel costume. They had an amazing one called Divas, which was about.
I went to Divas.
Divas was so
good.
Amazing.
So good.
I loved it. Did you go to the Naomi Campbell one?
No, I didn't.
Oh my gosh! Can we just talk about Naomi Campbell?
Go for it.
This bad bitch. Obviously, she is sometimes a problematic individual. She obviously had. I've got to make sure I get this right now. She was sent. She had a sentence passed where she was found of assaulting her assistant. Do you remember this?
She threw the phone at the assistant.
Yes.
Was the story.
Yes, exactly that. So they made her to make her an example, or whatever the reason, that she had to do community service. And on her last day of community service, she rocked up in this silver, almost like chainmail, full length Dolce & Gabbana evening dress with this metal belt on it, and she looked freaking, talk about working that PR angle. She looked insane. So good. But yes, the V&A did a exhibition on Naomi Campbell, which was amazing. And now they're turning their attention to Schiaparelli, who is quite a Marmite designer. Some people love the designs, other people don't. But that's the new exhibition at the V&A, which I will be going to see and I can report back on.
I love that. And I love the V&A does so much great work in fashion.
Yes.
Because fashion is such an art form.
It really is.
And I think obviously there can always be fashion that doesn't seem like an art form, but it is I went to the Dior exhibition and it was just incredible. The workmanship, the design, the creativity. So I hats off to the V&A that they do great job showcasing designers, whether you like the designs or not. The exhibitions are always fantastic.
Yes. And also when we're sticking with fashion and costume, I was so thrilled that the costumes for Frankenstein won the Oscar.
Oh, did they?
Yes, because they were. Did you? Also, I feel like they really skirted this under the radar because I had no idea it was happening. But they did the costumes. They did a costume exhibition in November, I think, when the original film came out on Netflix. You could go and see the costumes in London.
Oh, wow.
And I missed it. But the costumes in that are stunning. So I was really pleased that they won an Oscar.
I love that.
Yes.
Right, shall we get on to today's topic?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about
Self-sabotage.
self-sabotage. We all do it.
We do, for sure. It's like we said last week, just because we know these things doesn't mean we always do them. And we're always like, today I'm going to, my world domination plan is to dominate the sofa and just to have a nap.
Awareness
Yes,
helps massively.
definitely.
So today we're going to talk about self-sabotage, and we hope that those of you listening might become a bit more aware about the ways in which you sabotage yourself. Because the first thing is, if you spot how you do it, then you've got a chance of interrupting yourself when you do it, and then choosing a different behavior.
Exactly. And when we say, just like when you just start to notice it, to start off with, in a gentle way, this isn't about judging yourself, being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing that. It is literally, as Emily said, just starting to notice without any judgment, because you're just noticing. And then when you recognize it, then you can start to think about what we can do to gently step away from it.
So I want to start with where our inner saboteurs come from. And one of the things I find helpful to talk about and think about is there are lots of different types of saboteurs that we'll get into today. So it's self-sabotaging behavior. So these can be things like being overly controlling, being a perfectionist, being avoidant, being judgmental. We can get into more of those in a minute. But I think it's helpful to go back to where these come from, because they tend to appear in childhood when our brain is in a way simpler, and we're also very concerned about our own safety because we're more vulnerable. So when you're a child, let's give an example. So you're a child, and children are quite free-spirited, and they like to kind of put on a show or perform or whatever. And one of the wonderful things about being around really little children is they have no shame.
No.
So they do these hilarious things and put on shows or whatever, and they no sense of self-awareness, no sense of embarrassment. But then at some point in their life, maybe they'll go and do something really free. Like they'll go and dance in a way that's really free and liberating. And some other children might point and laugh at them. And they suddenly feel shame for the first time, which can kind of happen around the age of 7. And they might suddenly get it in their head that their free-spirited expression is bad and will lead to rejection or worse, bullying. And so in their mind, they might start to develop control, like a high sense of self-control. And they might believe that in order to be accepted by other people, they have to control all their actions and behaviors. So one form of self-sabotage can be developing very strong inner control that means on some level it's good to have self-control and we can protect ourselves. But then as an adult, if you've got this very strong controlling saboteur, what it can mean is you stop expressing yourself authentically. Or you believe that to be accepted in a relationship or accepted at work, you have to present a certain way, and you're spending lots of energy and control.
The good girl.
Being the good girl. So another saboteur is the people pleaser. Oh, I always have to please people or I'll get in trouble. My parents might shout at me. And so when our brains are very malleable, we develop this hard wiring, which actually might protect us really well as a child.
Definitely.
But when you're an adult, it becomes a self-saboteur.
Yes, and you're exactly right. So from just like a very basic neuroscientific point of view, we don't have that level of logical brain when we're small people as we do when we're adults. That grows and develops. Even like that part of our brain continues developing even into our early 20s. That's why when I see teenagers doing random stuff and stuff that they haven't thought through, I'm just like, oh, they haven't developed that part of that brain.
Yes.
They're very governed by primitive brain, and especially when we're small, and we will watch very closely like our primary caregivers, people in positions of authority, their behavior, and like right down to phobias. It's like we'll look at someone like our parents or whoever's looking after us and go, well, they're scared of that thing, I need to be scared of it. They're telling me this thing is wrong. They've kept me alive and they've kept me safe, so that means it must be wrong. And the same in that peer group, because we're governed by that need to fit in the tribe. Any kind of inkling that we're going to be shipped out the tribe, we're like, no, this is not safe, because that primitive brain. And you're right, it starts to hardwire those patterns at an early age that stay with us.
And what's interesting is it hardwires patterns, but the patterns are different for everybody.
Yes.
It's not like there's a standard, everyone develops control. But what you said is really true about your caregivers, because it's the adults that we're around who influence this. So sometimes we can develop a saboteur in reaction to their behavior. So yes, you might have a a parent who's kind of hypersensitive, hypercritical, and so you develop the people pleaser to meet them. And sometimes we develop it in copying them.
Yeah.
So you might have a parent who's their very strong expression is the judge. So the judge is very judgmental of everyone and everything around them. So you might have a parent who every time you go to something, they criticize everything and everyone. So I had a parent of someone I went out with who would be friends with people, have them over for dinner, and then the minute they left, just start criticizing them.
Wow.
And I weren't an authentic person, so I was really actually confused by it at first. I thought, what, isn't that your friend who just left? Literally, the minute they left the door, they would start tearing them to shreds. So they had this very strong judgment critic of other people. And so sometimes if that's your parent, you can pick up that habit, like almost like a habit. You can think, oh, well, that's how adults behave. So you also pick up that behavior, not necessarily as a protective mechanism, but it's like fitting in with your family.
Yes.
And then as an adult, the judge can help you feel, you're always talking about feeling safe versus happy. The judge can make you feel safe because there's some safety that can be felt by feeling better than other people. And so again, you might go round through life in your head or even out loud like she did, mentally criticizing everyone to make yourself feel better and feel superior, which is a false confidence, but it's sabotaging you because it actually separates you from people. It stops you having really authentic relationships. It also makes you judgmental to people, so you're not open to being friends with people. So just starting with where this comes from, yes, it's a safety mechanism. It can be copying our parents or it can be in reaction to our parents.
What do you think as well? Because this is just something that's occurred to me, and I'm thinking as well, like from personal experience, it's like if you are, say, like maybe like a younger child, or your parents are always very supportive, very nurturing of you, but they perhaps don't allow you sort of like the freedom to make your own decisions so much sometimes. When you then, I feel like sometimes it can even go past those early stages. And when you move into like what I'd call sort of peer life, when you're a teenager, even in your early 20s, when you meet influential people who you look up to and want to emulate, you can sort of like adopt some of the traits, and you can be swayed by like the way they are by trying to emulate them, like you're saying about the judge. I feel like that can also be your experience as you age, especially if you're like a teenager hanging around with older adults that you want to be like, you can adopt those traits.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. I think you can adopt them at any stage, and never underestimate the desire to be part of the tribe. So you do see people, I've seen people in my life suddenly change behaviours. You think, why are they doing that? And then it's because they've got a new friendship group, even in their 40s, that they want to fit in with. And I do also think you can have also traumatic events can happen to you as an adult. So one of the saboteurs is avoidance, avoidance of conflict, for example. And you might have been completely fine with conflict, and then you're in a relationship which is very high conflict, and your brain, to protect you, just becomes completely avoidant. But then that spreads in the rest of your life.
And it can be because like you've observed these behaviours perhaps from a young child, or you've seen it modelled in like key relationships perhaps between your parents, that you can be sort of unaware of how these things are impacting on your life. So they may not seem like they're self-sabotaging you.
Yes. So what I thought I'd do actually is run through a few of them.
Yes, perfect.
And we can talk about how they can sabotage you, because then someone listening might recognise that, not realising, as you said, that it's a saboteur, they might recognise it. And then we can talk about, once you've started spotting it, how to overcome it.
Perfect.
So we've talked about the judge already, as in judging others, but the judge can also be the inner critic, which we've done a whole episode on. So your self-saboteur might be you constantly thinking what I've done isn't good enough, or finding flaw, which again might have been something you were brought up with, and in a perverse way might have made you very successful because it keeps you driven. But how it sabotages you is it stops you enjoying your success. And it also stops you going for what you're really capable of, because you're doubting yourself when you're actually really capable. So the inner critic, the perfectionist, which again, I think that can be similar to the people pleaser, where you might have had parents who required everything to a very high standard, or you might have had the opposite. Sometimes you get people who've lived in chaos as children. And so in a drive, again, control can be one of them, but in a drive to react to that or create a sense of safety, they become perfectionists about their appearance, their environment, their life, as a reaction to the chaos of childhood. So it's a perfectionist. there's the avoidant, which I think a lot of people don't spot that they have that. And the avoidant is avoiding conflict, avoiding difficult conversations. Why are you laughing at that one? Is that right? So therefore, again, that can keep you safe. So there's a very strong reason to have that. But what it stops you doing is really addressing issues. And especially if you're avoidant of conflict or difficult conversations in a relationship, it can, some people look at a relationship where people have arguments all the time and they say that's unhealthy. But actually, some of the really unhealthy relationships are where the issues never get addressed. Yeah. And you might think that's sailing along and that's fine, but the person on the other side will feel that disconnection or that, in a way, lack of honesty, and eventually feel neglected and check out. Yeah. So the avoidant can be harder to spot because it's less obvious behaviour, but the avoidant can also come out in procrastination, because if you're avoiding pain or avoiding doing things that are difficult, if there's a work task that's difficult, your brain just goes, "Oh, just go and do something else that's more comfortable." So it can come out in just not actualizing ourselves, not achieving our goals. We've got the controller, similar to the perfectionist, but the controller can also be wanting to control other people, which is a whole, that's a road to hell right there. Yes. Right? I love it. But that is again an extension of maybe feeling out of control as a child.
100%. Yeah.
And then you want to control everything. You can never control everything, so it sabotages you because people run away from it. You can always feel out of control because life isn't controllable, and so it can create huge amounts of anxiety and be very limiting. You might have people who might not travel because they can't control everything when they travel. The overachiever. So this might be weird. You might I'm really successful. How can I be sabotaging myself? But the saboteur of the overachiever is that I've always got to achieve the best. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're living the life that's really fulfilling to you. You might be in search of the best so much in your career that you forget to develop meaningful relationships outside of it. Or you might be trying to achieve so much in relationships that you're valuing people as trophies, right? Yeah. Who's the best looking girlfriend or boyfriend I can get? You keep laughing at all these things I'm saying. We're not here to analyse you, Julia.
I feel so seen right now.
But it's like, I have to be so visibly successful that we're not stopping to see, is that what's really good for me, which is different to what I want. So there's the overachiever, people pleaser we've covered. The enforcer, it's a bit like the controller, but these are people who have to be the absolute alpha.
Is it wrong that I love the sound of that one more than
yeah. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of all of these. It's when it starts sabotaging. And the enforcer's like my way or the highway. They often like to rule their family with an iron fist, or their business or their industry. And again, it's really disempowering to everyone around them. And it's actually, it creates a lot of very unhealthy relationships. So the enforcer then will struggle again to have healthy relationships. The rationalizer and the strategizer, the last two, are ones that I really connect with, which is, if I think about this hard enough, or if I strategize well enough, I can solve any problem.
Yes, that shows up a lot in my practice, but in my therapy practice.
Right, let's just think this through. And again, you might think, well, thinking this through, this sounds really healthy. And it can be, but actually what we were talking about at the top with Belle Burden and her story, that she was trying to rationalize an emotional experience that also she will never fully be able to rationalize. And actually the rationalizer or the strategizer doesn't always know when to let go and just move on. Because every problem is a problem that they can solve by thinking. So they can get stuck in a thinking loop, or they can disconnect from their emotional experience. They might be in a relationship that isn't healthy, but they think, well, if I work harder or I have a strategy, I can right this ship. Not recognizing that it takes two people to tango. The other person also needs to put the effort in. Or not just listening to that quiet inner emotional voice that just says, this just is not right for you. You need to leave. Now, there are more. I mean, those we've done quite a big list. There are more, but I think we've covered a lot of the main ones. And again, I've realised I just did that really quickly. You might want to just pause and replay that all.
Yes.
Stop and ask yourself, when have I ever behaved or felt in alignment with any of those? And is that a pattern that started earlier on in my life? When did it start? Why did it start? How does it play out now? And we're now going to kind of move on to talking about what we do about it. But do you have any thoughts just on, on that list that I've just shared?
I was literally, and I feel like that it's good to, like you say, look at the list, even if you write out each one and think about and identify which ones. Maybe you could even scale which ones, because
Like 1 to 10 on each one.
exactly, because your primitive brain may go, oh my gosh, I can pull out, especially if you're feeling like anxious and on edge when you like this podcast comes to you, you might be like, oh my gosh, I'm all of them. My life is
Yes.
I'm like literally going to have a meltdown. So yeah, have the list and think like which one, like on a scale of 1 to 10, and don't try and over rationalize it. Just do an intuitive, where am I 1 to 10? Because it's like we want to solve everything overnight and we want to do a pivot, but actually we can, if we just start working on the ones that we're most like we feel are causing us the most hurt and discontent in our lives, that's a really good place to start.
Absolutely.
I think.
There is a tool online called Positive Intelligence.
Mhm.
It doesn't cover every single one I've mentioned, but it covers a lot of them, where you can do an online questionnaire. If you love a quiz, it's better than a Cosmo quiz, but if you love a quiz, go to positiveintelligence.com and you can do an assessment that also gives you a bit more information. So I think it is good to just pause and reflect. As I said, we could probably do 3 or 4 episodes on this. It's a very deep topic.
Yes.
But I hope that's just giving you a taste or an idea, first of all, of what your saboteurs might be. So
Really
once
is.
someone's kind of started to spot the saboteur, and spotting it is first recognizing what it might be, and then recognizing the unhealthy behavior that, like, how that shows up in your life. So for the controller, is it suddenly a desire to control everything in your life, or not be able to move forward on a project unless you have every single bit of information? Once someone started to notice the behavior associated with the saboteur, what are some steps you think they can take to start unpicking that behavior?
So we usually, like in clinic, what we will look at is how it is manifesting in life as well. Like, what behaviors is it driving you to do? Like, specifically, is it causing you to basically avoid doing the task? Is it causing you to eat a pint of ice cream every day?
Yes.
Is it causing you to scroll endlessly on social media? So we're looking to see where are the actual physical sort of hurt points in life that are causing us problems. And then, as I said, it's not like we can pivot. It would be amazing if we could just wave a wand and everything would be great overnight. But it's like starting, because our brain still needs to feel safe. And if we have developed these habits and these strategies to feel safe, we can't just take away all of these like ingrained habits overnight. So what we would look at doing is just gently starting to track back some of those habits, as we talk about a lot on the Bad Bitch Reset on the course. It's, what am I doing? Am I spending like an hour and a half on social media every night because I want to feel like I'm in control of my day? What would it be if I could do like an hour and 20 minutes? And even if you did that once a week, same with the eating, gently sort of scaling it back. And the control, if I just maybe sit quietly and see what comes out of the meeting without me launching in full, here's the assault plan, what other ideas might come out which might enhance my idea? And you only might need to try that tactic like in one meeting in the whole week, but it's just gently sort of starting to be open to other ways that serve you moving forward.
I've got another one to add on to that, which
Yes.
in some ways slightly contradicts it, but it's the theory of opposite action. So another way you can approach this is, next time you spot yourself, first of all, you identify the saboteurs, then the behaviours, and make a list of these behaviours that you maybe want to drop or change. And then the next time you catch yourself doing the behaviour, stop and think, what is the action I'm about to do? Like you said, eat the ice cream. And ask yourself, what would be the opposite action to this?
Yes.
And see if you can do it. And you're not going to make yourself do it every time, but just see if a couple of times you can do the opposite action.
Yes.
And that disrupts the loop. So, for example, let me share a personal one. When I was younger in relationships, I had the avoidant saboteur. So if I felt an argument brewing, I would just literally try and leave the room or try and not have the conversation.
Which is a very natural reaction to perceived danger.
Yes, absolutely. And if I was in real danger, that would have been the right thing. But it was more discomfort about the situation than the conversation. And I realised the opposite action is just to stay.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be to have the conversation. It would be to literally just stay in the same room as that person.
So you've taken like a positive small, you've opposited it. You've done the opposite, but in a like a way.
Yeah, I didn't go, I have to now have this big conversation that I'm scared about. I just have to just stay in the room, or even just stay in the room for 5 more minutes. Or it might be, you know what, the other day I did this on myself because I was actually sat here. I had an evening off. I was sat here, I was chilling out. And then I finished my work, and my reward part of my brain, because I do bribe myself, said, go and get some chocolate out the kitchen.
Brilliant.
Which is not, it's not like it's always a bad thing.
No.
But I really didn't, I'd had a full dinner, I really didn't need it. And I literally thought, what is the opposite action? And I went and did 20 minutes on my bike instead, on my static bike. So I still watched the TV, but I did it on my bike at home.
Nice.
And I felt way better, and I didn't eat the chocolate. I actually felt quite smug at the end of that. Now, that's not to say I do that perfectly every time. But if you do the opposite action and then your brain goes, oh, well, that was actually a better result. Now, other examples, if you've got the controller, is recognizing I'm trying to control everything. Can I take a first step without having all the information? Can I try and do this task without having to perfectly organize my desk first? And again, just say, can I just do something for 5 minutes?
Yes.
Without doing the controlling behavior or rewriting my to-do list for the 10th time. And it's really amazing when you just get yourself to do the opposite thing, even just for 5 minutes. You create a new neural pathway. I now have another choice of how I behave when my saboteur comes up.
Yes. And it's all about like doing those behaviors that gently build those new neural pathways. And I think it's really good that we both covered techniques that work for people in different situations, because if you feel like you've got two techniques, whether you're feeling like you're on a winning streak and you can do that hard pivot and do the opposite, but in a small way, which is amazing, or you can do that small tiny track back away, that small step back from the sabotaging behavior. That will work for you depending on how in control you feel at the moment. If you're feeling calm and chill, you might be able to do that hard pivot, which is amazing. And if perhaps like you've just had a bad day and you're not feeling quite as resilient, just being like, okay, I'm going to kind of do this. It is what it is. I'm not going to judge it, but I'm going to just make a positive step back away from it.
Yes.
So it's like, how fast are we running from the behaviour?
Well, and it depends on the behaviours as to which approach works. It depends on you. I do think it's worth talking about when these behaviours are more extreme, because for some people, self-sabotage, it leads to very extreme behaviours. A sabotage I didn't mention can be being the pleasure pig, which is basically where all your decisions are driven by pleasure, maybe as a reaction to deprivation as a child, for example. But this is where your self-sabotage can lead to spending addictions or food addictions or drug addictions.
Well, because we're fighting like dopamine in our brain and that chemical reward, which makes it even harder.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So some people, the saboteur is having a major impact on their life. And I'm going to share with you now some of the therapies that I think can really help in those more extreme situations. It'd be great for you to share too. Obviously, hypnotherapy is absolutely one of them. So when these behaviours or patterns are either extremely embedded, so it actually feels unsafe to let go of them because they really protected you as a child. For example, if, like, say someone's been assaulted and their saboteur of control has come as a result of that. Or it's just that the behaviour is having very unhealthy consequences for you. So you need a very quick way to address them. So a few things that I found helpful, or I think are helpful, obviously talking therapies, talking to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, rapid eye movement therapy, particularly if you've had trauma. I did it after my car accident, can be very powerful. The technique of havening is another one that can really, if it's trauma related, can help you let go of the trauma and then the behavior that's protecting you from the trauma. And another thing that I know we'll talk about again in future is doing something called the Hoffman. And the Hoffman is like 10 years of therapy in a week. I did it 10 years ago. It's not for the faint-hearted, but one of the things that they do on the Hoffman that is incredibly powerful is help people break these self-sabotaging patterns of behavior. And I'm actually going back on the Hoffman very soon. Watch this space. We'll talk about it within the
what you're allowed to
restrictions, because you're not. It's like Fight Club.
Yeah,
like you can't tell everyone what happens on the Hoffman, but there is some things you can talk about. But if I've known people, and also there are lots of celebrities who talk about their experience going on it, who have gone into the Hoffman with very unhealthy self-sabotaging behaviors and come out and never done them again.
Yeah,
it doesn't fix it for everyone, but I do think if this is something, if you're listening to this and you have a very strong self-sabotaging behavior, get some professional help,
Definitely.
because you can shift these things really
Mhm.
quickly, and also they can be really having a negative influence on your life. But is there anything you want to add in terms of what are some of the other therapies that can really help people if they really have to shift this quickly?
I think, as you said, talk therapy is great, and it's talk therapy that, so like CBT, moving you forward. Hypnotherapy obviously great because we're getting your, because all of our patterns are driven by our subconscious and lives in our subconscious brain. And when we're working with hypnotherapy, we've got our conscious mind and subconscious mind focused on the same things, and we're also coaching ourselves to be in a space where we can start to rely on our serotonin to boost our mood. We're getting less reliant on that dopamine, especially if you're in those spending addictions or those food addictions, to just sort of gently help move you forward. And I feel like one of the last points I would like to make, unless you would like to add anything more, is just like, if you find, you once you've done your list and you've scored yourself and you've identified that this is where I'm at and I want to move forward, whether we're doing the opposite reaction, small steps forward, professional help, just to reassure you that there is sort of light at the end of the tunnel and you can move forward through this. One thing I say to all my clients is like, it doesn't matter whether you're 8 or 80, you can always sort of pivot and you can always move forward through that amazing neuroplasticity in our brain, through having the right support, through just treating yourself gently and just finding a gentle way forward. Because just because we've learned to be this way doesn't mean we can just as easily learn another way.
It's like that saying that the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago
100%.
and the second best time is now.
Exactly that.
It's never too late to do this work.
No.
It's life transformative. And one of the things I've just been thinking about a lot lately, and I've mentioned it on previous episodes, is courage.
Mhm.
I think to live a really fulfilling, wonderful life, we have to have courage.
We do.
And courage is something you do, you practice. It's not that you're born with it. It's when you face something difficult, you step forward to it. So if we've spoken to you in today's episode, if you've realised you've got some saboteurs, then what would courage look like for you
Yeah.
to addressing that or getting help or moving forward? And yes, it takes a bit of courage, but it is so worthwhile on the other side of it.
Exactly. And also just remember you're not alone. You've probably got a lovely friendship group, and if you don't, there are so many amazing communities online. You can reach out to myself or Emily, and if we're not able to help you, we can signpost you to other amazing professionals that we work with. But as you can tell, like, we are very like supportive of women. We want you to move forward. We want you to live your best life. So do not, even if you are really struggling, you are not alone, and there is always other women that will lift you up.
What a beautiful place to end.
I was going to swear and be like, but I thought, no, don't dilute the
I'm
message.
going to do it. Namaste, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Oh, we love you. I love you.
Oh,
Thank you
you
for
too.
being with me. And lovely ladies and people of the podcast, if you have anything you want to share with us, please do. And let us know any other topics you'd like us to cover. And then, as always, if you could like, share, subscribe. And if you feel like you know anyone that's struggling with this topic, do feel free to just send them our way.